let's do a quick setup here. I'm going to start out by just having one file here that I'm going to call spec.js. And I want to run this file with Mocha. There's nothing in here at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, let's actually open up the editor. And this is where we're going to start using our scripts here. And in my package.json, I'm going to change this to test dev because I'm testing my development environment. At some point in the future, we'll talk about actually doing some continuous integration where we would end up just using the script test. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to basically just run Mocha. Mocha's installed, and I'm going to do npm run test dev, and I'll get an error that there are no tests. And that's true, so let's actually run a test, and we're going to say we're going to run spec.js. And even though it's an empty file, at least it'll see that there's a file. It'll say none passing. But what I'm going to do here is in development, I'm going to put a watch flag there. I don't find this to be perfect. Sometimes I have to restart things. But usually, my tests will end up rerunning every time a file changes here. It's like using nodemon. And what I'm going to end up doing here in my spec, I'm going to describe. So this is the language of Mocha. And I'm going to end up describing. Describe is actually a Mocha method. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to describe acme tdd. And very often what's done here is you'll end up nesting things. But let's just put a very simple test here. We'll say... so describe is where we basically describe our tests. It's a way of organizing our tests. It basically is where our tests are. These are where our assertions are. So let's do an it, and we'll say true is true. And if I just put this in, again, sometimes it does not pick up on that, which is a little bit weird, but it'll actually say that true is true. Now, there's really nothing that's going on in this test. So how do we end up doing our testing? Well, our testing is done with assertions, and this is where chai comes in. And so chai has a function called expect. So I'm going to require the chai library and grab expect, and I'm going to write an expectation. Expect true. And so chai has its own methods that can end up getting used here, but one of them is to say I expect true to equal true. And it still passes, which is good. How about I expect true to equal false? It ends up failing. And it tells me how it's failing. And so what we could end up doing with this is we could actually start setting up our test. Now I'm going to take this out. And I'm going to describe, I'm going to put all our tests in here for the moment. We can always separate them out. But I'm going to describe our data layer. And we're going to use sequelize, and we're going to do, products and categories. But I'm going to describe our data layer. And one of the things I'm going to end up doing is seeding our data. So I'm going to have a test, and my test is that I expect there are 3 products. All right? And I could end up writing that expectation. Again, there's nothing that's in here. But we do have our system set up here, and we could go about starting to actually set up our tests and set up our data layer.